A week ago, U.S. Secretary of Defense Austin stood in front of more than 1,000 graduates of the U.S. Naval Academy, boasting, U.S. maritime power enables the United States to sail, fly, and operate with allies and partners, from the South China Sea to the Gulf of Aden to the Caribbean. At the same time, it also said that the best ever U.S. Navy deterred conflicts and reminded the world of what the United States stands for. Obviously, the thick-skinned defense chief has been passed down by his seniors. After all, just the day before, the United Arab Emirates, one of the three core military fulcrums of the United States in the Middle East, just announced that it would stop participating in the Combined Maritime Force, CMF, led by the United States. Regarding the news of the UAE's withdrawal from the group, Brotherly has already introduced it in detail in the article The UAE's Withdrawal from the Group. The group owner is dumbfounded the day before yesterday. A brief summary is, as a professional retirement group, the United States was tragically withdrawn from the group by others. Through his own tabloid, he made excuses for the UAE who had withdrawn from the group, so as to give himself a step down. Unexpectedly, he received a waste card again, and was accused of being weak. The commander of the U.S. Navy's Central Command and the commander of the Fifth Fleet opened his eyes and told lies, saying that the UAE is still a partner of CMF, and this has not changed. To be honest, I thought the plot was outrageous enough here. Unexpectedly, there is a follow-up to this big drama. Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, and Iraq plan to form a new naval alliance to ensure safe navigation in the Persian Gulf, and Pakistan and India also plan to join. Real or fake? This isn't a member who wants to leave the group. Maybe the group is going to disband? In fact, Brother Yuli first saw this message on June 1st. At that time, the Iran News Network reprinted a report from the Qatar Al Jadid News Network, saying, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Oman had started consultations under the coordination of China to prepare for the establishment of a joint navy. However, after several investigations and no more authoritative evidence was found, Brotherly was skeptical for the time being. After all, this is a big matter, so we still have to be cautious. I couldn't believe this miraculous news until June 3rd, when Iranian Navy Commander Shahram Irani officially confirmed the news in a TV interview. It's not that Brother Lily is overly cautious. In fact, when someone posted relevant news to a military forum in the Middle East to try to verify it, most netizens were also skeptical. Why is everyone so unbelievable? Because, to put it bluntly, the moment this new alliance is established is the moment when the Middle East truly awakens, and it is also the starting point for the collapse of the hegemonic empire established by the United States. I think everyone should be familiar with the countries listed above. Bahrain, the Fifth Fleet Command, one of the 6 largest fleets of the United States, and the U.S. Central Headquarters Naval Command are located 8 kilometers away from the capital of this small country with 1.5 million people. Qatar, 35 kilometers southwest of the capital Doha, is the Udeid Air Force Base, the largest U.S. military facility in the Middle East. There are more than 11,000 U.S. soldiers stationed there, and Qatar voluntarily invested $1.8 billion in 2018. The U.S. dollar was upgraded to a permanent residence. United Arab Emirates, the Al Dhafra Air Force Base, located about 32 kilometers southwest of the capital Abu Dhabi, is one of the most advanced military bases overseas by the United States. U.S. Navy Base. There are also Masrat Island Airport and Duqm Port in Oman, Prince Sultan Air Force Base in Saudi Arabia, Al Asad Air Force Base in Iraq, and that's right, in the Middle East, there are U.S. military bases almost everywhere. When these Middle Eastern countries decided to jointly protect themselves, the United States lost the opportunity to kidnap in the name of protection. Unless the United States goes blatantly mad and decides to invade the Middle East by force again, those garrisons will not be able to act as a group of domineering overlords as they are now, even if they do not withdraw in disgrace. In other words, the Middle East will truly be the Middle East for Middle Easterners. So, why does the United States set up so many military bases in the Middle East and continue to strengthen its control over the Middle East by forming a 38-nation Combined Maritime Force, CMF, and other means? For a long time, the United States has often used the hegemony of the US dollar in the international monetary system to pass on domestic crises and harvest world wealth. What is the pricing benchmark for US dollars? From gold to oil, what currently gives the US dollar its hegemony is its deep binding with oil. Oil is the blood of industry. Even if you are as rich as the US emperor, you have to say I steal oil for the motherland, let alone other countries. The US dollar is used as the settlement currency. If other countries want to purchase oil in the international market, they must first own the US dollar. As a result, the United States printed and issued money, and used a piece of broken paper to search around the world, and countries used the dollars they earned to buy oil, and the oil-producing countries bought US Treasury bonds and materials after earning dollars, making the dollars return to the United States again. It is based on the triangular infinite cycle system of dollars, not debt that the current US dollar hegemony has been created. In this process, the Middle East, whose oil reserves account for 66% of the world, has naturally become the top priority that the United States must control. On November 29, 1947, despite the objections of the Arab countries, the United States forced the United Nations General Assembly to vote on the partition plan of Palestine, and inserted a nail into the Arab countries that believed in Islam, with Jews as the main body. And through the First Middle East War, revealed to the Middle East countries the arrival of the American Middle East era. In 1953, the United Kingdom and the United States jointly planned the Ajax operation, which overthrew the Iranian Prime Minister Mossadegh, who advocated oil nationalization, and transformed Iran from a democratic country into an autocratic monarchy where King Pahlavi monopolized power, forcing Iran to agree to let the United States and other oil giants jointly exploit and manage Iran's domestic oil in 1954. In 1979, the Shah Pahlavi's regime, which had always been pro-American, was overthrown by the religious leader Khomeini leading religious figures and the public, and the Islamic Republic was established. Annoyed and angry, the United States supported Saddam Hussein to power through a coup through the CIA, took control of Iraq and attacked Iran, and the Iraq War broke out. In 2003, after Iraq decided it would use the euro instead of the US dollar to reprice its oil reserves and use the euro to price and settle oil exports, U.S. Secretary of State Powell brandished washing powder at the United Nations to declare that Iraq possessed chemical weapons of mass destruction and brazenly launched the Iraq War and overthrew the Saddam regime. In 2011, in order to prevent Syria, the intersection of crude oil pipelines and sea routes, from falling into the hands of Russia, the United States instigated the Syrian civil war in an attempt to overthrow the pro-Russian Assad government. And weapons of mass destruction as an excuse to bomb Syria, and to stay in Syria in the name of counter-terrorism and steal and sell Syrian oil on a large scale. All in all, over the past few decades, the United States has intervened in the internal affairs of the Middle East by force, and even violently overthrew the legitimate government of sovereign countries. On the other hand, it has instigated the Arab Spring to support political opposition in the Middle East. The internal unity of the Arab countries creates divisions in the Arab world. The old United States even took advantage of the contradictions between Saudi Arabia and Iran to continue to provoke conflicts and confrontations between Middle Eastern countries on a larger scale, dismantling a Middle East that had hoped to be united, and completely reduced it to a US-maintained country. A tool of dollar hegemony. In a TV interview on the evening of June 2 local time, Iranian Navy Commander Shahram Irani also mentioned the sentence. Almost all coastal states in the northern Indian Ocean have concluded that they need to stand with Iran and work together to ensure regional security. The region will soon be free from any illegal force intervention, and the safety of the people in the region will be protected by the military of countries in the region. That's right, after nearly 100 years of wars, the countries in the Middle East finally realized that they want to usher in a complete peace, and clearing the United States out of the Middle East is the most basic condition. So the question is, since the Middle East is so important to the United States, can the maritime alliance of the countries in the Middle East really be successfully established? Leaving aside the covetous United States, the countries in the Middle East have already been granulated under the intervention of the United States for many years. It can be said that there are many contradictions among them, and it seems difficult to reach a consensus. But don't tell me, the opportunity is not only possible, but also great. The mystery of this is hidden in the report. That's right, it means starting consultations under the coordination of China. If the United States is the declaration of war entrenched in the Middle East, then China is the peacemaker in the Middle East. Under the mediation of China, in August 2022, the UAE resumed full relations with Iran and sent back its own ambassador to Iran. 6 months later, Iran also resent an ambassador to the UAE 7 years after the separation of diplomatic relations. In March 2023, the old enemies of Saudi Arabia and Iran reached an agreement to restore diplomatic relations between the two countries. 1 month later, the ministers of Saudi Arabia and Iran met in Beijing and signed a joint statement, announcing the resumption of diplomatic relations from now on. In addition, the diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Syria, which had fallen to the freezing point earlier, are also expected to thaw. Peace talks between Israel and Palestine are also likely to return to the right track. Nations can raise the basis for new maritime alliances. When the United States loses its ability to threaten the Middle East through military bases, how can the countries in the Middle East, which have suffered from the dollar for a long time, be willing to allow the oil industry, which is the backbone of their economies, to be exploited by the United States again? From the moment the new naval alliance is established, it is also the moment when the hegemony of the US petrodollar comes to an end. Once the United States, which is already heavily indebted and on the verge of debt collapse, loses the dollar hegemony, how long can it last? For the United States, as the fragments of the Middle East fall off, a domino-like collapse will follow one after another. The British Economist magazine reported on May 30 that since the outbreak of the Russo-Ukrainian war in February 2022, thousands of people have died in Ukraine and infrastructure worth billions of dollars has been destroyed. At the same time, the cost of war in Russia has been surprisingly low, and its economy has fared much better than expected. The Economist said that because Russia's military budget is opaque, after consulting with many experts and analyzing it, the magazine estimated the cost of Russia's war at about 5 trillion rubles, $67 billion, per year, 3% of GDP. The proportion of war budgets in GDP in various countries, source The Economist. From the perspective of historical data, this amount can be called insignificant. During World War II, the Soviet Union spent 61% of its GDP on war, while the United States consumed about 50% of its GDP. Why is Russia spending so little on wars? The Economist gives 3 reasons. The first reason is political. Many Russian government officials want to continue describing the war on Ukraine as a special military operation. This operation is almost meaningless if it consumes a double-digit percent of GDP. The second is economical. Russia is trying to extend the gains of the war without draining its national economy. Printing money would fuel inflation and lower living standards. Saddling banks with public debt could have a similar effect, will reduce personal income. That's a problem for Putin, who will run for president in 2024. Putin's victory appears to be a foregone conclusion, but he does not want mass demonstrations. National defense is of course the most important thing, but when addressing strategic tasks in this area, we should not repeat the same mistakes, we should not destroy the economy, he said recently. A third reason has to do with defense economics. Today's armed forces are far more efficient than they were in the past. They need fewer men and their weapons are more accurate. The economic theory of Baumol's disease suggests that over time, highly productive sectors tend to make up a smaller and smaller share of GDP, unlike sectors like healthcare, which take a larger share. It is still possible to build a strong army for much less than in 1945.